Thank you for the opportunity to speak on behalf of people with intellectual disabilities and their families, to speak on a panel of stakeholders. And having to say that, I think that it's important to say that when it comes to deinstitutionalization, people with intellectual disabilities don't just hold a stake in this issue, they also hold a very, very short end of straw. All reports show there are hundreds of thousands of people with intellectual disabilities in institutions. Reports also show that people with intellectual disabilities, or specifically those with complex support needs, tend to be overlooked in deinstitutionalization efforts, so the least to benefit from anything that is being done to deinstitutionalize disabled people in Europe. And let's also not forget what we were reminded by one of the members of the committee of the hundreds of thousands of people who are in danger of being put in an institution and their family members who live in dread of that as well. It seems often that the institutionalization has become a big exercise in wordsmithing. There's a lot of talk, there's barely any action. It also appears that the institutionalization has become about many things, but closing institutions and supporting people who are segregated in institutions to move out of those harmful places, to set up a new place, new life in a new place of their own with the support they need included in the community. This means, of course, that we need a refocusing of activities both at EU level and especially at national levels. There needs to be a clear identification of population that is institutionalized. I find sometimes hard to believe that nobody still can answer the question how many people are institutionalized in each member state. There also needs to be a clear action plan to close these places. And there, of course, needs to be provisions in EU funds that condition access to EU funds based on how member states act on those plans. It's not enough to write in some documents that we might have a strategy. It's not even enough to write something that looks like a strategy maybe. What is important is to act on those words. There needs to be condition in access to EU funds connected to how each member state progresses on closing institutions and in supporting people to find a new place and a good support included in the community. I would also say it's important to learn from the work that is being done around Europe. Some of that has been discussed. There's, of course, a lot that is not good enough in terms of the institutionalization, or shall we not call it the institutionalization at all. But there's also a lot that is being done. Let's not forget that the majority of people with intellectual disabilities are supported in their homes by their family members. There are many community-based services supporting people. And I'm making that point to make it clear that obviously people know how to support people with disabilities to live independently in the community. There is nothing new to invent in this regard. There is no more place for excuses from policymakers and from service providers. I've kind of had it enough listening to all kinds of lists of barriers from service providers, what kind of conditions need to be done for this or done for that. It is clear, the path forward is clear, the demand is clear, and the practice is also there that can be built on. So just to wrap up, and maybe a short reaction here as well, I have to find it a little rich to say that there is not enough evidence on abuse in institutions or violence in institutions. I think I could sit here for a very, very long time just recollecting things from the top of my head, not leaving aside that institutionalization itself is an act of violence. So to conclude, as movement of people with intellectual disabilities and families, as a movement of people whose hundreds of thousands are institutionalized, are not benefiting enough from all the effort or the funds being spent on, in some cases, so-called deinstitutionalization, I definitely urge the Parliament to do anything in its powers to make sure that the next budget conditions access to EU funds on actual deinstitutionalization in each member state. And I think that, thank you.
Thank you very much.